Welcome to the Football Historian Podcast.
By all means, enjoy it.
He will go right to the very top.
Dos, tres, cuatro times.
Here we go, Germans.
I will turn these results round.
All right, that's good manners.
There's animosity, but there's no fight.
If you can't beat them, join them.
How do you make me feel sick if I look at you?
No, I want to fight here. Don't drink, don't sleep with women, don't drive fast cars.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit too!
Hello everyone, welcome to the Football Historian Podcast. We're starting things a little bit differently today. That's because we've changed up the format a little bit here. So you may be able to already be able to see, if you're watching, I've got a new chair. I've got a new chair over here as well. We're now an armchair podcast where we talk to each other in a bit more comfort. What that means is for episode 1, you can now see my legs for the first time, and unfortunately I've decided to play footy and cut myself to pieces, so I've got horrible big scabs on my legs, so I apologise. So if you are listening, you've saved yourself that horror show. The reason we've also changed the format is we want this bit at the start to be correspondence. So if you want to get in touch, the email address is thefootballhistorianpodcast@gmail.com. I've had a few people get in touch on Instagram and Twitter, and they want to discuss things about football history, and that's what we're more than happy to do. So starting from next week, we're going to answer some questions that we've already been sent. But if you want to get involved, the best way is email us at thefootballhistorianpodcast@gmail.com, or we'll put all the socials in the link below as well: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're everywhere, so just give us a message. We'll have a chat about whatever you want to talk about. Also, if you subscribe to the Patreon, £1 is the initial fee that you'd have to pay, £1 per month, and you can ask questions to the guests. And that, speaking of guests, today's guest is Dr Alan Tonge. He's a former Manchester United player. He was the first player to ever be signed by Alex Ferguson when he arrived at Old Trafford. He's the first non-Liverpool guest we've had, so I hope you enjoy it. But we talk about his career at Old Trafford. We talk about going to Exeter, the lack of support he had after leaving Manchester, the career-ending injury, and what he's done in his later life. He's also got a book out called From Red to Red, and as I say, it just talks to his whole career, which we're going to do today. So enjoy the episode, please get in touch, and yeah, we'll see you very soon. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Football Historian Podcast today. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr Alan Tonge. We checked that off here, spelled correctly, no UE, but it's still the same pronunciation. So I've already said to you off here, as you can maybe tell from my accent, from Liverpool, everyone we've had so far has had some type of Liverpool connection. You were the first non-Liverpool guest, and I've thrown myself right in the deep end with someone with United ties. So just if you can explain to everyone how your career began about the Bolton boys and your early days. So what was that like playing football in that era?
Brilliant, yeah. So, like most people, Pete, really love football. My dad was a decent player, played in sort of Oldham, Bury reserve sides, and he always says, well, he met me mum young, and then he went, I don't want to sound cruel, he went downhill from there. So his football career anyway. But just typical, just great memories of playing in the garden as a young lad, and, used to sort of have a creative game sort of thing, last minutes in cup finals, and amazingly, United always used to get the late winner, which was crazy. But so started off in school stuff, and then just transitioning really through the different things, and playing with Bolton schoolboys, as you say, which was nice, representing your town. Then I was lucky enough to represent Greater Manchester County, so been over here a couple of times playing Merseyside. They always used to be good sides, and then I got scouted then. Scouts started appearing around 13, 14 years old. So I had a few trials, went down to Bolton for a bit. Man City had a look at us, and I eventually got invited into to United. Well, all my family are kind of like United supporters, so I think sometimes that was almost like my heart ruling my head, when you look at the situation. But so ended up going into United and signed schoolboy forms for them, and then managed to sort of get an apprenticeship and
Well, I had here that you had interest from City, so obviously you're saying your heart rules your head, and I've never been anywhere near that position, but I feel like if Liverpool ever asked me to play for it, it'd be hard to turn him down. I think it is something that you said maybe regret it, or things might have ended up different if you'd gone somewhere else. Where do you reckon, if you had your time again, you should have picked if you could do that?
Well, I think it's trying to get opportunity, isn't it? And I think there's a lot of, sometimes, Peter, you've got to be a bit shrewd here, but because you're not educated enough, or you don't understand environments, or you don't understand youth development at the time. You're just a young 14, 15-year-old, and you look at the situation, say for argument's sake, Bolton, you might have had a decent chance of getting into the first team there, and who knows, thinking about back then, I think sort of like some really good players started off at Bolton. I think like Alan Stubbs was there, like the Everton, ex-Everton, and Jason McAteer was there as well. He started off at Marine, of course, and Bolton picked him up. But almost like cutting your teeth in kind of a lower level, and then seeing how that went
on from there.
Yeah, it's just like anything else. You come into sort of your Man Cities, Liverpools, Uniteds of this world, and it's tough because like you're just surrounded by top players.
Well, if we go on to that, obviously, I think the biggest name, I think, for that picture that's on the front of your book is Ryan Giggs is in the same team. I think he was under a different surname at that time. There's also Adrian Doherty, who you speak about as well. So just if you could explain to people what type of player were you, and what was the standard like when you arrived at Man United?
Yeah, well, it was a bit of a strange one, to be honest, but I think coming through the grassroots system and the schoolboy system, I was kind of more of a midfield player. Used to enjoy, taking free kicks, scoring some goals and that, and I was lucky enough to play in a good grassroots side called Bolton Lads Club, and we had quite a lot of young players from that team who went on to become apprentices at league clubs. So we had a few who went to United, like 4 from my grassroots team signed for Man United as apprentices. And we had lads who went to Burnley, we had lads who went to Bolton. So it was like quite a strong side. And I think back then the coaching that I received was probably more complimentary to my personality, like lots of praise, lots of encouragement, and then you kind of step into this world of the pro game, like in the academy. It's a bit different then. Like our coach back then was Eric Harrison, who's like the sort of the infamous kind of class of '92 coach, and Eric was quite a ruthless, tough coach. So not much praise at all, and so it was a little bit of a strange situation that, but yeah, midfield beating grassroots, and then when I went to United, like more fullback, like even playing centre half and stuff, and a bit of an identity kind of shock, like having to fill in there. But as a player, probably just steady. I probably didn't let anybody down. I'm a decent passer. I used to enjoy tackling, getting stuck in. And so as a kind of a player, what I tried to do is just, try and get a decent performance most weeks. I was 7.5 out of 10. And, I was never one of these who was kind of be dribbling past loads of players and stuff like that. So I would probably describe myself as a young player, like more steady than spectacular.
Yeah, well, if you can explain as well to people, because it's something I've heard a lot, but not always explained. Like C teams, B teams, A teams, reserves, your YTS, stuff like that. Obviously, just explain to people, you're arriving as a teenager. Obviously, you've selected United. You're famously Alex Ferguson's first acquisition, and we will go on to that slightly after. But what is like the field of progression for you, and how you get from where you were at day one into hopefully as you wanted to get into the first team?
Sure, Pete. Yeah. So how it worked back then, I was 4 teams at United. Like the B team was kind of the first rung on the ladder. So I used to play as a schoolboy in the B teams. I think they were under 18s, but more kind of 15, 16-year-old, or maybe first year apprentices kind of played in that. If you was progressing through the B team, then the A team was the next kind of step, and that was kind of more open age and quite interesting. Eric Harrison used to oversee the A team. Then the reserves, so stepping up in the reserves if your career was kind of on an upward trajectory, and then the golden goose at the end of it, like the first team environment. That was kind of your pinnacle, or what everybody was striving to get into. So those transitional points were quite interesting for me because I think I started off all right. Played in an under-18s team quite young, 15. Played at Resis at 16. United took us to a club called Histon for a first-team friendly when I was 17. So it was going all right. My career seemed to be like moving in the right direction. And then I think all of a sudden it kind of just maybe started levelling off a bit. Competition was fierce. When I was at United, unfortunately, they weren't flying high at the time. Fergie had kind of been in a few seasons. There was quite a lot of fans asking questions whether it was the right choice or not. And there was like an infamous banner that was unfurled at United by a supporter called Pete Molyneux. 3 years of excuses to Fergie. Probably the most infamous painted bedsheet ever, because after that, when the class of '92 started arriving, and so they just went on this mad spree. But But at the time, I think certainly like from a professional perspective, like loads of players in the squad, and I think you had to be like precocious, you had to be outstanding to get an opportunity. And I think, describing myself being that last question about being 7.5 out of 10, I don't think that was enough. Although probably that had its plaudits for performing in that way. You had to be like 9, 10 out of 10 to get a first team opportunity.
To shine, and obviously there's some competition in your way. But yes, you said you had 2 years YTS, and you got the professional contract, and then so you play for the A teams, the reserves. I think I've got to hear that you beat Man City to the league. Was it dramatic last game? So you've obviously 7.5 out of 10. So although you're saying there you probably need a 9 out of 10 to be getting the first team. When you get the call in the office that fateful day, I think you said the day where your whole world caved in. What were you thinking? This is the end, or were you thinking I'm going to get another year, or how had it panned out for you?
Yeah, it's changed over the last, this is going back a good few years now, but I think young players now get probably told a bit earlier, especially when you're schoolboys and you're transitioning into full time, because exams to think of and stuff like that, and you don't want your mental health being affected, and so we had a decent season. The A team playing in the in against some good sides in there, like Liverpool's A team, Everton's A team, City's A team, and I think at junior level, United prided themselves on doing quite well in some of the youth competitions in the youth leagues. So it had a reasonable season, and then I think it got to about May time, like you say, that last game, it was like nip and tuck all the way, and we managed to pip Man City to the title by 1 point. And after that game, I came in for some decent praise. Like Alex Ferguson and Archie Knox's assistant manager at the time had come and watched the game and said, you've done really well today. I was playing against a lad called Jason Beckford who played in Man City's team on a few occasions, and I'd had a decent game. So I thought, well, with that praise, it sounds all right. I'd only signed a year contract, pro contract, so probably the worst one because the pressure's right on you. A lot of young players now, 17, 18, they're signing like 3-4 year deals, and especially with the under-21s coming in as well. Seems to be a bit more time there, Pete. But anyway, as you say, Pete, we come to the end of the season. We knew it was kind of decision times and what was going to be happening. No agents back then, so no one to fight your corner. And it was Brian Whitehouse, who was the reserve team manager at the time at United, who came down to the dressing room and said, like Sir Alex wants to say, or not. The gaffer wants to see you, not Sir Alex at the time, of course. Yeah. But so I remember going up the stairs, Pete, and looking at Brian to see if there was any clues in his face, like very sort of full on, and knocked on the gaffer's door, and you come, shut the door, and he just said, like, I'll just get straight to it. It's a bit like The Apprentice, with Lord Sugar. Get straight to it. We're not going to renew your contract. Going to have to move you on, and I think in that moment, like you say, you've been at United since you was about 14 when I signed schoolboy forms to 19, like tough. Yeah, that was hard. You talk about mental health stuff, and so there's like no aftercare back then, Pete. It's almost like you get told this decision, and it's like your world kind of crumbles in on you, and then in that time, you're just expected to go out and train again with like the group of players. And I remember, I think it was like United had a training ground called Littleton Road, which was just down the road from the cliff, and I was taking part in a session, and I was just not with it. I remember probably like tears in my eyes, like I was just distraught. And it was Paul Ince, I think, like I had a bad touch to give the ball away, and like started moaning. I'm thinking like I just had my heart broken, and like the players, but obviously he didn't know, of course. But in that mindset at the time, it was just like really bad.
Yeah.
But that nothing like that had happened these days. Anything in those kind of circumstances, and as you say, Pete, I think for a spell there, it was like, yeah, it's just lost. Like you've just been told like you're not good enough, and it's just something that you probably, your identity is wrapped around in it becoming a player and a pro, signed a pro deal, so you're on the way up, and then to have it kind of took away is like, yeah, that was a tough. It's usually say in life that it's hard. The punches that you don't see coming are the ones that are the hardest ones to kind of take. And
so it was a shock when you.
It was without a doubt, and it's like you say. You don't know any different. You just think, well, it's not going to happen to me, and I'm playing all right, I'm doing okay, and obviously not.
I can't imagine, but I can imagine it would be terrible. So you said you trained that day. So how long after did you go? Like, did you have a couple of months or?
Yeah, it was. We had a couple of tournaments. Like they took us away to United. Used to go, Pete, to a youth tournament called Blue Star in Switzerland. That's famous. Busby Bay's been going there for many years. And it was something that United kind of like got involved with. So I went there, which was brilliant. That was a great experience because we had like Sir Matt Busby came with the party. Sir Bobby Charlton travelled with us. We had Brian Kidnobby Styles there. So that was brilliant though to get that experience. And we also had a trip to Trinidad as well, which was a bit crazy because you think about sort of United and how they look after young players. That's one thing they do particularly well. That's get them into tournaments, and I think going right back into the Sir Matt Busby in the '60s. I thought that's something he wanted to push for, and get that feel of playing against European competition. And it was crazy playing against like AC Milan's junior sides. But
you're doing all this after you've been released, is it? Well, been told you're not staying.
So mentally, I don't know where I was at the time, but just sort of trying to go with it and just sort of think, well, what can my next steps be after this? And just try to enjoy those last moments, I suppose, Pete. But yeah, we went to Trinidad, and remember Dwight York played for Trinidad and Tobago, and that again, a surreal experience. Really hot afternoon, and they were running riot. We were lined up, dripping in sweat. The Trinidad lads, no sweating, like they just run us ragged. I think it was either 2-0 or 3-0 for Trinidad and Tobago. But Dwight York was the captain that day, and so that was kind of my last experience after United coming home from that. And then that's it. The phone doesn't ring, Pete. That's it. Finished. Like nobody checking up on you. You pick your boots up for the last time, and you walk out the car park and the training ground gates, and that's it. Done. Finished.
Yeah, well, it's a brutal end. I think that's obviously, we'll talk about how it's changed maybe for the better nowadays. Our last guest, George Scott, he played under a legendary manager in Bill Shankly. He gave him like a letter. It was a support type thing. He tried his best to get into another club. So was there no one from United that like supported your next step? Did you keep in touch with anyone or?
Nothing really. I think from levels of support and phone calls, and see, it's difficult because the world was very different back then. Like I say, no agent, so you was having to drive your next opportunity. So it was me phoning Phil Neal at Bolton Wanderers, who was the manager at the time. It was me phoning Sammy McElroy, who was Macclesfield manager, say, fancy having a look at us, or you're almost scrambling for another opportunity. And I think that that spell where you kind of come out United and then just thinking about what you do next. But I always felt as it wasn't the end of the story. I had something that I was a decent player. A lot of the young players these days, it's just an opinion on you, and you just got to try and find that resolve, that resilience to think, well, all right, it's not worked out here, which is it's a heartbreaker, but life goes on, doesn't it? Football's not everything. At Man United, some people think it is, but you had to sort of think about, okay, where do I go now?
Yeah. Right, well, it seems a good time to leave for our first break, and we'll come back and talk about what happened after United. So, see you in a sec. Welcome back to the next section of the Football Historian podcast.
Sorry, Pete, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Where'd you get that shirt from?
Oh, this Latium one was just from Classic Football Shirts. Where'd you get yours from?
Thank you. Mine's from Classic Football Shirts as well.
Wow. Well, when I bought my shirt, I used the code TFH10 to get 10% off all orders. Did you use the same?
I did. I used a discount code. I think it was the same as yours.
Oh, TFH10? Oh, that's great, because if you want to get 10% off all your orders, you can use TFH10 at classicfootballshirts.com.
Unbelievable deal.
Right, hello, welcome back. Thank you for not running away in the break. So I just want to talk about some legendary managers or people that you obviously were in contact with. Very famous, the story of Fergie's first fledgling. Mm-hmm. You are the first signing in his reign. Obviously, being an A-team and reserve player towards the end, not getting that first team chance, but he's arguably, for a lot of people, the greatest manager that's ever lived. You were there at a period right before he became the force that he was, but was it obvious then that he was going to have that control, or was it just like, how was he as a person?
Yeah, just a winner, really, and just a tough man, really. I think even now you hear players who played a lot more than I did, like saying there's still a bit of fear there, in relation to like, if I don't say the right thing, he'll clip me behind the head, or he just ruled with a, sort of, not with a rod of fear, but it was like he was in control of it all. He was like a mafia boss in a way. I think that's a good way of looking at it. He knew everything that was going on, and obviously back then, late 80s, early 90s, clubs were a lot smaller. The staff was a lot smaller, so you could maybe keep an eye on what was going on these days it's like a UN delegation, some of the staff, into like 15, 20 staff like sat around the bench and stuff, physios, strength and conditioning coaches, analysts, like crazy really. You have like an analyst, an assistant analyst. You'll have another analyst who looks after the analyst. It's like mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of the staff is crazy, but he could see everything that was going on, Sir Alex, and he knew about everybody, and it was. But yeah, back then, I think it took a bit of time for his career to get going. He'd come with a good reputation from Aberdeen, obviously beating Real Madrid in that kind of Cup Winners' Cup final, and then Ron Atkinson a bit unlucky. United doing okay. So United were on a long spell at the time, but not winning the league for a number of years, and that was kind of the objective. And as you say, Fergie arrived in November '86, and it was like 1990 before he picked up the first trophy of the FA Cup, and then success started to come then, and picked up the Cup Winners' Cup in '91, and then just missed out the season before then when it was still the old kind of Football League. I think it was Leeds United kind of done them late, and then first season of the Premier League, 92-93, managed to pick that up. I think had a bit of a sort of a ding-dong battle there. Was not sure if it was Aston Villa. It was nip and tuck to the end of the season. Your Liverpool listeners will be loving some of this description.
That's fine, I want to talk about them.
But I don't know, from then, obviously that crop came through, started to appear. Beckham, Scholes, Giggs, Gary Neville, and his brother Phil, of course. They appeared on the horizon, Nicky Butt. And they kind of, sort of filled in and started to do well and got their opportunity, and that was it. Then his career turned, didn't it? And it was like a sort of a 90s, 2000s kind of like a sort of a constant stream of successes and leagues and FA Cups and but again, patience is a virtue, isn't it? If you're lucky enough for someone to give you that bit of patience and give you that backing that he had, something to build on. I wish someone would give me a bit more patience, but it didn't work. The winds of destiny didn't blow in my favour from the patience point of view, but it just goes to show you, if you do give somebody opportunity and a bit of time, it can all turn around.
Yeah, and so were you looking on with envy watching what they were achieving? Were you thinking it should have been me, or were you surprised that he managed to get such a good performance out of the players that you were playing with?
Yeah, I think back then, Pete, just again going back a number of years, I think I was just kind of trying to push my football on. I think it left United in kind of the June, July time, and then just try to get fixed up. I went down to Bolton for a couple of weeks. Had a Phil Neal, Liverpool legend. He was Bolton manager at the time, so I've spent a pre-season with them. Did okay, played in a few games, and unfortunately just couldn't come to any arrangements after that had finished. So I thought, remember arriving home and throwing my bag down and thinking, like, there's another kind of opportunity that slipped by, and I just kind of drifted down into the non-league for a little spell, just probably more to keep my fitness up than anything, just to keep myself ticking over and playing, and I think that was kind of for a month or two, and then just totally out of the blue. I think this is how crazy the world was back then. There was a neighbour who phoned Alan Ball, who was kind of the manager of Exeter City at the time, and said, "Well, we've had a lad at United. Would you be interested in having a look?" And I played under Bawley when I was a first year apprentice at United. Him and a manager called Laurie McMenemy took a group of Football League representative players to play the Russian Football League in Moscow. And Alan Ball, like I say, and Laurie McMenemy was the manager of the party, so he kind of had a little bit of a connection from that. So yeah, I played in kind of that game. I think we beat the Russian team. It was either 2-0 or 2-1. So a few years down the line, that's sometimes how football works. You're somebody senior, and I got invited down to Exeter, and I always laugh with the Exeter people and not being rude to them. From a geographical perspective, I don't know a clue where Exeter was, to be fair. I've never really been much out of Manchester or Bolton, kind of where I was living. So yeah, my dad drew me a map, M6, M5, and that was me in my little Fiesta, heading down towards Exeter, at 4.5 hours away, and a bit of a shock to the system, but just felt there's somebody had maybe thrown you a little opportunity your way.
That's what I was going to say. So you just needed someone to give you that chance, and it came from quite another legendary figure in Alan Ball. I think they just got promoted, was it, to the Division 3 at the time when you arrived. So, obviously you got that chance, you're going to be eager to show. What was the gap between leaving United and getting the chance at Exeter?
I think United was, you were very lucky to play with some really good players. So like when you say you got the ball at fullback, you'd have like say Ryan Giggs like spinning into a channel for you, just knew where to hit it. Whereas like you get the ball at Exeter, then it might be a bit slower. They might just want it into feet or something like that. So I think the standard of play was definitely noticeable, and I think it didn't quite happen for me straight away. Just playing in kind of reserve teams at Exeter, but you know, as I kind of got going a little bit, I got a little bit of belief. Alan Ball was brilliant for me. Gave me that sort of backing again that I was after. I can't speak highly enough of him as a unbelievable player, Pete, for one, and as a manager, he was fantastic for me. And used to join in the five-a-sides on a Friday morning, but that was stereotypical, really, of what football was. I don't know if they still do it. You know, like have a five-a-side on a Friday morning before a game on a Saturday. I'm probably more analytical these days, running through like all the set pieces for themselves and the set pieces of the opposition. But we used to have a little five-a-side for about 45 minutes, and Ball used to join in. And then, you know, you sort of like look at people in life where you've kind of got people who are good, but then there's people who are like above that, like unbelievable. You talk about your Ronnie O'Sullivans in snooker, Tiger Woods in golf, you know, all your real stars of the sport that you're following, and watching Bally in action, like frightening, like one touch. And you're looking at him and you think, you're about 3 or 4 stone overweight and you're still schooling pros and all that. And, you know, you look at him, Pete, and you think, how much you would have been like when you was like in your prime, like playing in the World Cup side and, you know, early 20s. Bally must have been unbelievable for Everton, but he's still held in massive regard there, isn't he? And
he's definitely one of the legends that they've had at the club. Obviously, as a manager, he didn't quite hit the same heights, but he did still have a decent career. He was in the top division managing soon after. So, what was he like as a coach for you? Was he encouraging? Was he as harsh as maybe Fergie was, or what was it like?
Yeah, I think they both like expected big things off players, because the difficulty for Bally was he's kind of been like such an elite player himself, but like this is like Exeter in kind of League 2 at the time, so you had like it was like the old Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, so Premier League sort of kicked in 92, 93, and then it went to kind of Prem. I think it was Prem, League 1, League 2, League 3, I think. So on Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. So Bally had Division 2 players. So like you say, we got promoted a season or so before that. And but he always tried to play football. He wanted his teams to work on the passing, and you know, we weren't kind of a lumpet side where you just get like big players up front and just get long throw-ins into the box. Nothing like that. So we always wanted to play Bally. But yeah, Bally like lose his temper as well if you're not doing it. Used to be raging at you, and because again, the winners, aren't they? Like they expect big things off you, and if you're not doing it, you know, they're gonna sort of pull you up on it. So you're right. Similar parallels to him and Sir Alex Ferguson in relation to just wanting to win. But yeah, just great memories. And I think what I particularly liked about Exeter, Pete, was just a nice city. Seemed to take an age to get there, but you know, when I kind of spent my time in Exeter, I kind of loved the place, really, and just a different way of life, a lot more reserved, quiet down there, and fantastic memories, and you know, very fortunate to still be involved in a little way today with them, with Exeter. I do a bit of radio commentary for them, which is amazing, and you know, I can't sort of sing praises any higher for that club at the moment. Like, they're well looked after. Good structure to it, like fan owned, and just good people all around the club, like that you meet. The media guys are brilliant. The manager, the coaching staff, the players, all good people, and you know, I think that's really important when you get a unity like that. I think that's a springboard then for hopefully a bit of success to come for them in the future.
Yeah, so obviously you spoke highly of them there, and Exeter give you the chance, Alan Ball give you the chance. United, the chance is taken away from you because you released your chances, taken away from you again at Exeter. Obviously, if you can just discuss how your career sadly came to an end.
Yeah, so I've been playing in Exeter's kind of first team. I didn't, manage to make loads of appearances. I think it was about 27 in total, but I think I had about 19 league appearances. And we were playing in the Autoglass Trophy back then, Pete. So I managed to rack up a few, and got to about, I think it was about 22 years old, something like that. And I just started to get some pins and needles, like down my legs and in my feet, and so I can't remember whether I'd kind of fell funny a few weeks before, like on hard ground or something. But I decided to play on for it. A bit stupid, really, but because my contract was running out like 93, 94 season, I thought, well, I better crack on and just, make the best of it. And that's probably the worst thing you can do. But again, you're kind of entrenched in this culture back then as like, no fear, and you got to crack on with stuff. And I think Wayne Rooney's been called out a little bit for it, only for sort of saying that some of the United players should be really putting themselves forward for selection, because you're thinking, well, you've not got a terrible injury, if it's just a little strain or whatever, strap you up and get on with it. That tended to be the mentality back then, people. You're thinking, well, was it the right thing? Probably not. So I decided to play on, and I think it was a game at Swansea City away. And I remember before the game, like, I was really struggling, like one of those where, like, in certain movements, you just get like an electric shock down your leg. And I said to my mate, like, at the time, should I tell the baller, like, I'm really struggling? So, well, they've done all the set pieces and all the shape and all that. Like, it's like an hour and a half before. Okay, well, we can't tell him now. So I thought, oh, I'll crack on. So I got a load of DP, rubbed it on my back, and I thought, I'll crack on with it. And I managed to sort of get my way through. And then after that, I thought, I better see the physio. And that was the beginning of the end, unfortunately. It sent me to have an MRI scan, and so your back was in a bit of a bad way. I had to have 2 operations. The first one I had to have screws and plates put in my spine, and so not great. And you're thinking, like, is football worth that? It's not, because the surgeon said to me, mum and dad, and if Alan had like a bad tackle or he'd have gone up for a header and crashed down again, it could have like severed his spinal nerves. Like would have ended up in a wheelchair. And you think, like, football's not worth that, is it? So that was it, really, and got to the end of the 93-94 season, Pete, and that was me. That was all over for me. Football was kind of done and dusted completely. So I felt done and dusted, like, after United, and just got it going a little bit, and then completely done and dusted. I think I was around 23 and a half, something like that. Yeah, it was again another tough blow to take.
Yeah, well, again, it's insult to the injury of United, and obviously the back injury as well. But just want to speak, Trent Alexander-Arnold's got the After Academy nowadays, where he's looking at people after when they in the position you're at United. Obviously, you then go on and you found a club, and the PFA trying to do more stuff now. I think you've already discussed how there wasn't much help. That mental health didn't really occur to anyone. No one really wanted to look after or took the responsibility to try and help you. So what was it again? The next day after you've left Exeter, where are you? What do you know what's going to happen, or how are you feeling at that time?
Well, when I was apprentice at United, like a lot of young players these days, they put you through an educational programme. How it worked back then, Pete, is if you was bright enough to have 5 GCSEs or more A to C, you did a BTEC. So you went to Accrington College. If you didn't get 5 GCSEs A to C, you went and did an MVQ. So you went to Trafford College, which is like local to Manchester. So I was in a kind of a select group of lads who'd done all right at the GCSE. So that was the only thing really I picked up. They put us through that, and they also had a referee's kind of award or something that they put us through. And they had a low-level coaching badge as well, so the first rung on the ladder for coaching. So that there was a couple of things there, but by the time I got to kind of 23 and a half, 24, you're thinking, well, what's my BTEC worth? What's my referee's test worth? Not a lot, really. What's my prelim coaching badge worth? Well, a little bit, I suppose. And so I thought to myself, well, because I've had such a blow in football, like, a lot of people want to stay in the game, but I don't know if I was like that fussed. I tried at the start, and a lad who was manager, who went on to be manager for Exeter, called Eamon Dolan, he sadly died. He went on to Reading and had a good career as a youth coach and a manager there. He gave me some hours, Pete, in like Easter camps and holiday camps, and doing a bit of coaching with juniors, which was great. But the trouble was it wasn't full-time role, and it was like a bit ad hoc, and you'd have 1 week where you do something, and then you want like the next half term 6 weeks away, and I needed something more substantial. But because I was kind of like completely lost, maybe I was in denial at the time, because of obviously my football had gone. Probably had a spell of my life where just getting into bad habits, really, like probably going down the pub more than I should have done, and definitely my mental health was affected. Probably gambling a bit more than I should have done, overeating a little bit, and just lost, and identity's been smashed up, and it's just, I think, for a few years just trying to think, well, I need to get some path laid down again, because it's just going around in circles here. So I did a couple of jobs, picked up a bit of van driving, I worked in a warehouse for a bit, but I think when you've been a footballer and you've been around United and Exeter, and that's no disrespect to working in warehouses or van drivers. I just felt I had a little bit more to offer. I had a little bit more potential in me somewhere. So I got to, I think I was 28 years old, and probably made the best decision ever, and it just come out of nowhere, because I said to me, I was talking to my family, and they said, well, why don't you go back to university and re-engage with your education again? But back then, Pete, I never saw education as an option like uni, because you look at uni and I always thought there was like mass big equations that were written on boards, like the Open University stuff that you used to see in the mornings on BBC Two, and people in brown suits with you're thinking, I don't know if that uni's for me, but it was kind of starting. The courses there were like sports science; they were just starting to evolve and get a bit better, and so anyway, I went to the University of Bolton. I spoke to someone on an open day, and they said, well, why, with your background in sports science seems like a decent fit for you. So that was it. Like, my life kind of started to turn around from that decision, really, and it kind of gone, hopefully, on a more solid footing from that, So I picked up got my degree in sports science, and I did a teacher training qual straight away after that, called a PGCE, a postgraduate certificate in education, which allowed me then to teach young people in colleges or HE level, which is brilliant. I picked up a master's degree as well in philosophy, and then completed a PhD not too long ago. So I think probably using my kind of resilience and my courage and your fortitude that you've kind of picked up a little bit, probably without realising, coming through these tough football environments, and just managed to kind of shape the arrow in a kind of a slightly different direction for myself, and move my life on in that way.
Yeah, well, it's inspirational stuff. It's like to not have the support there from football itself and the football clubs that should have been looking after you, to then, there's your book, you're a doctor. That's quite inspirational, I think, for a lot of people. Maybe even it's not transferable to football, no matter the position you find yourself in, there is a way out of it. So obviously your book here, From Red to Red, how'd that come about, and how proud are you to see that you've got your story now in a book on the shelves? Yeah,
it's a funny one, Peter, because I thought obviously my football career was really short. It's kind of a sort of a game. So I remember I'm lucky enough to be involved in the Ex-Players Association, because I signed like a professional contract at the Ex-Players Association, have some events every year. And I think one of the first events I ever went on, I think it was about 2010, 2011, something like that. Somebody said to me, "You're like me, you're a nearly man." I thought, probably right, yeah, that's fair, that's fair. You're just on the cusp of it. And but I think I just had a chat. I mean, there was a lad who wrote John O'Kane's book. Now, John O'Kane played for Everton for a spell, and I knew Michael Garvey for a year or two, and I just had a chat with Mike one day and said, do you think there's enough here to sort of put something down, like with the United and the Exeter stuff? And he said, well, we can have a chat and, see if we can draw out some stories, and hopefully it just bring something a bit different to market. No, I'm not a player of like, we've won the leagues, we won FA Cups, we won Premier Leagues. It's not about that. It's about some stories from the environment, some players that you played with, some of the challenges in that environment at the time, and and how you kind of try to sort of navigate your way through that in order to come to sort of an educational outcome in a way. So he said, yeah, I'll have a go at it. So I met him for over a couple of years, every sort of month in a coffee shop, and he said, well, tell me about United apprentice days, tell me about some of the players, tell me about the manager, tell me about Giggsy and AD Doc, and just working way through a few chapters like that, and then having to come out of the game and trying to sort of spin it around a little bit. So actually, you're right, you talk about Trent's kind of initiative now, which is absolutely fantastic. We need more of that. there's a lot more of me than there is of Trent. You know, these guys are like at the top of the trade. Unfortunately, not everybody can get there. Only the very best do. And if you just fall short, if you don't quite get your opportunity, you're gonna have to look for something else to do. And quite a lot of players as well, Pete, at the end of their careers are gonna have to look for a second career. You know, the PFA have always said that. Unfortunately, not everybody can be on Premier League wages. Yeah. You know, especially around like League One, League Two. You know, the non-leagues now are more professional than they used to be. So chances are you're going to have to look for something else to do. You know, most people probably want to stay in football if they can, but again, it's that opportunity. You know, if you want to be a manager or you want to be a league manager or a first team coach, you know, them jobs are quite competitive. And I think one of the challenges I kind of faced when coming out of football was the squads were really small, so I didn't have enough credibility with football to try and write for managers' jobs or coaching jobs. And if no one's pulling you, Pete, and saying, "Oh, there's an opportunity for you here," you know, you hear of some clubs where they give you like coaching ops now. You know, say you get released at Liverpool as an apprentice, they might say to you, like, "Have you fancied that picking up your coaching badges? Can you work in the community?" Or I didn't have any of that, unfortunately, so I had to try and sort of fight my way through that and build my path in another way. So quite a cathartic experience, revisiting some of the stories and the experiences, but you know, almost like say, well, let's put that to bed now and let's sort of see where, you know, my career can sort of head on next in like an educational perspective.
Yeah, well, that's great. Obviously, you can get it all good bookstores, I assume, and Amazon and whatnot. But yes, that's from Red to Red, Alan Tonge story. We're going to go to another quick break and then we'll come back and talk a bit more about football history. So we'll see you in a sec. Are you looking for a Kazakhstani football team to support? Then I think FC Kemay is the team you should support. Do you agree?
Growing up as a child, I always had FC Kemay posters on my bedroom wall.
Well, and all the children of the Kazakhstani future will have FC Kemay posters on their wall because FC Kemay is the team to support, and because of that, Tom has made us a chant that we're all going to follow. So,
up the Kemay, up the Kemay,
up the Kemay. Make sure you follow them on all the social medias. All the posts and all the things you should follow will appear below us right here. You should be a supporter of FC Kemay.
Live, laugh, Kemay.
Right, welcome back to the Football Historian Podcast. We're going to talk about some football history now. So, just on a personal level, what's your first memory of football?
First memory of football in the garden with my dad. I was lucky, Pete, that, you know, some people are fortunate not to have a garden, and I remember my dad built some nets, like football nets, and so a lot of creative kind of games were going on, like sort of using imagery, visualization. You're in the last minute of a cup final. It's amazing. United always used to get the late goals and stuff like that, and so that was really good, and I think around that, Pete, just taking balls everywhere, you know, like if you went on holiday or you went to the beach or you went to the park, and that's all it was, football, getting some posts up. And you know, back then, being in the kind of the culture that we grew up in, was you used to sort of like go to school, and as soon as the bell went, it was like run home as quick as you can, throw your bag in. We used to call it get your playing out clothes on, so drag all your old stuff on and up to the field at the top of the road, really, and meeting a lot of schoolmates after that. And I think those days golden in a way. Like a lot of young players now, like they're picked up really young, aren't they, in relation to academy football? Getting like Man City, Liverpool, Man United, like scouting under 6s, under 5s. It's crazy, but you know, up to sort of 8, 9, 10-year-old, I was like, even like in my secondary school years, a lot of the football I learned was just like myself playing with mates, and you know, just creating games ourselves. Used to, I don't know if you remember. Some of the listeners might be, I used to play things like Wembley singles, Wembley doubles, heads and volleys, but like learning, really crafting stuff. But that's one of my worries, I think, of the modern game. Like it's almost like you're in a professional environment too early, and you don't have that scope to play a little. I think, you know, some of the big clubs will probably do this really well. Like they'll keep the young players in that play mode. But you know, I think Wayne Rooney said a few years ago, like street football, isn't it?
Yeah.
But a lot of it now is like young players get picked up and they're almost like into this kind of like coaching academy, and you know, associated with a professional football club really young.
Yeah, you're a United fan as a kid as well. Did you go to the match often?
Yeah, my dad was a supporter, so my dad sort of watched, Busby Babes, Best Law and Charlton eras. Used to go with my uncle quite a bit to watch United at Old Trafford, and again, from myself, it really just United kind of had more of a cup team when I was kind of coming through the system. Obviously, 1979, going back a long time now, United got done by Arsenal in late goals. I've not cried a lot of football. That was what I remember. What was I? About 7 years old, in tears at the end of that game. So the Liverpool listeners will be loving that. But United were Arsenal winning 2-0. It looked all over the cup final, Peter. And United come roaring back into it, made it 2-2. And then within a minute or so, Alan Sunderland has scored for Arsenal to make it 3-2. So that was a disappointing. But yeah, following that through, United were 83. They beat Brighton in the FA Cup final after replay. Again, lucky. United have been a bit lucky in finals. Right at the end of that game, there's a famous Anne Smith must score for Brighton. They had a chance to do it. And Gary Bailey, who was United's keeper at the time, smothered it and kept him in. And they won the replay quite comfortably. 85 Everton. Norman Whiteside's goal, which was great. So more of a cup side United, and more of a team who were kind of chasing Liverpool. Really, Liverpool were the dominant side of the 70s and 80s, and United were just trying to get in front of them in any way, shape possible. And I think what I can remember is United kind of used to sort of do all right at Anfield and used to do all right at Old Trafford against the Liverpool sides, but then lose to other sides, so they couldn't quite get that kind of league title challenge going. So that was kind of my early memories, really, coming through some of the cup final stuff, and even back then, Peter, following stuff on the radio. You talk about it these days where everything's visual now, isn't it? And, football's covered all over the place, but just think good old school football, how it used to be. And remember, I see a lad at the Ex-Players Association used to play for Everton many years ago called Mickey Thomas. He's still involved with Wrexham at the moment. And Mickey said to me once, we was involved a good time, 70s, 80s, 90s in football. Not too sure about modern football, Pete, I must admit. Without signing a dinosaur, it's very different now, isn't it?
It's a totally different game. Well, I was going to ask you what your favourite era was, so maybe that rules out the modern era, but obviously, though, you're talking there about the Busby Babes a bit before, you watching the 70s, 80s United side, you've watched the dominating sides in the noughties, but what do you think your favourite era of football is?
Probably the 80s. I think we had some good World Cups then, 82, I remember that vividly. Especially the semi-final, France and Germany. That was a real ding-dong tie, and some mad stuff in that game. Germany's keeper Schumacher wiped out Patrick Batterston, broke his jaw, and the French went 3-1 up in extra time. The Germans come back and made it 3-3, and managed to get to the final. But Italy won the World Cup that year, so 82 was kind of a good thing, because you used to sort of rush home from school games. I remember Brian Robson's early goal against the French, one of the group games. I think it was, I'm not too sure if it's still the quickest goal, 27 seconds. Not too sure. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
It's in there, isn't it?
Yeah, so was that, and then 86 was Mexico, hand of God, Maradona. So yeah, enjoyed following that, the World Cup stuff, and obviously led up to me joining United 88, and then I can remember Italia 90. I think it was again England unlucky, went out on penalty. So probably the 1980 to 90 was a good time for football, and some real good ding-dong ties as well. United, Liverpool, it was sort of when those two teams lock horns, and I still think to this day, Pete, that Man United, Liverpool to me is the biggest rival. I know City have arrived on the scene, and Arsenal obviously this season, but United, Liverpool is always the one that Liverpool fans want to win and United fans want to win.
Yeah, well, yes, I agree. If that helps, but I want to ask you. Obviously, you're still a United fan now. You're still watching the games. Can you give me quite a harsh question? The top 5 Man United players of all time, and in order, if that's all right, please.
Well, it's probably top of the tree, best. Still, in letting you talk about sort of spectacular ability, and George Best was kind of bang up there. I think Sir Bobby Charlton definitely up there. So I had a lad, speaking, football historian, Duncan Edwards gets a massive reputation as well. Tragedy what happened to Duncan, playing in United's first team at 16, and look at Duncan in some of the photographs of that back then, big, massive lad, but you always to get the mark of a player, just listen to the ones who've been the best. Sir Bobby Charlton always used to say that there's not many players who he sort of looked up to, but Duncan was one. And remember listening to like Alan Ball on a podcast, like talking about when Ball was coming through, like watching this lad in midfield for United, like battling through the mud, and just a colossus of a player. So I think he's definitely up there. One of my personal favourites, Brian Robson, was kind of my hero. Really, I think Robbo for me top 5, like, because footballers, it's a funny one that you get a lot of talented players, Diego Maradona, Giggsy, but the both very dominant. Like Giggsy, very dominant on his left foot, right foot not great. Headers, all right, but you talk about all-round players. Like Duncan Edwards falls into this category as well. It's not a lot of players who can do everything, and I think Brian Robson kind of fits into that. Could pass long and short, score some cracking goals. Courageous, could score some cracking headers. A leader of men. He was kind of club captain. He had everything. He could tick every box with Robbo, not like no weakness, and not many players have that. You look at some in the modern day, and you can kind of pick out attributes where you think, wow, that the brilliant at dribbling, or what a left foot he's got. But generally, in general terms, Robson had like everything, so he'd definitely be up there. And there's always that debate like Robson and Roy Keane, like who's the best, and a lot of people side with Keane, but for me, I always differentiate it and think, well, Robson scored goals I don't think Roy Keane could score, like the semi-final on Main Road, when Robbo nipped through against Liverpool and I stuck it in the top corner. And I don't think Keane could score goals like that. But so that's 4. Oh. So top 5. Probably the best Law and Charlton thing, isn't it? Like Dennis Law was like outstanding as well.
Yeah.
So going back into the 60s. So quite a few old players in there.
That's what I say. No Ronaldo, no Rooney, no anyone like that.
Do you know what, Pete? I think with your Liverpool listeners, you could go back and pick 3 or 4 class sides, couldn't you, with all the players, and that to narrow that down to an 11 is tough. And one of my friends, like Roy Cavanagh's done a bit of writing for Man United. He's just published a book over this last sort of few months about who is your best 11. And it gives you an opportunity at the end of the book to go like 1, or your system that you're going to play like 1 to 11, and you could probably pick about 2 or 3 in every position. That's really tough, but
so go watch your top 5 then in order. We can have a 1 to 5, please.
Probably best Charlton. Let's have a think. Best Charlton. Let's go with best Charlton, Edwards, Law, and Robbo, number 5. I'll go with them 5.
Not a bad one. And then another one to put you on the spot, sorry. All times, doesn't have to be United, it could be anyone, any era, all time, 5-a-side team. So, whatever formation you want to play with.
Yeah.
One in goal, one in the back, 2 in the middle, one in front.
Yeah, you got to be clever here, aren't you? Like, you got to think about who can do the business. I mean, there's so many players like that you could select here, but is this just kind of like Man United based?
No, all take could be any player, any team, any era.
So I'm just trying to think of my heroes coming through the years. I mean, I used to enjoy watching Michel Platini for the Fred. I thought he was an outstanding footballer. So he's like really silky player. So he was one of kind of my heroes as well, like growing up. So I'd stick Platini in there. Probably Maradona, and so like it's again just I don't know, Pete, just natural ability, aren't they? It's hard to. There's that question, that academic question, of players born or made, maybe gifted, aren't they? Like, how can you coach somebody like that? So you think about Maradona. It's a very attacking 5-a-side team, this. Because I got Messi in there as well. Like, he's Messi, unbelievable, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
You see some of the clips of him on YouTube as like a sort of an under 7 or under 8, whatever he was playing like. He's just a miniature version then under 8 than he was as like a professional, wasn't he?
That's it. You can tell. Then. They must be able to tell, obviously, from that short. When you're that good, it must be that obvious. Surely you need a defender and a goalkeeper. I think your last 2.
We won't have to worry about that. We won't have to worry about that because, like, who do you pick here? Do you get Pele in? Do you get Cristiano? Unbelievable, isn't it? Like some of these players, but that's a good question, though. Like who's going to be your goalkeeper? Like who you'd shove in there, and can it be living or dead?
Yeah, of course.
Probably go with the World Cup winning Gordon Banks, I think. Yeah, I mean, it seems a bit of a mad choice, that, but he's done something that no Englishman's done since. And all the females have picked the Euros up, of course, but let's get Banks in goalie. And
that's one more. You've got then.
Yes, we've got Banks, Platini, Messi, Ronaldo. Did we say Maradona?
Oh, have you put Ronaldo in? Okay, that's fine. So it's no defence, 4 up front.
Just gung ho. All Gordon Banks has got to do is just roll it out and just light a cigarette up and just wait.
Okay, well that's perfect. Then, so we'll leave it here for this section, and I'm going to come back and we're going to settle some of the biggest debates in football history. So we'll see you in a sec.
Hi, I'm Warren, the producer for the Football Historian podcast, and we're here today to talk to you about the Patreon subscription.
Yes, so for just £1 a month for the first 100 people, there's a lot of benefits that you get, and I think £1 is a terrific deal.
Pittance,
yes, £1 only, and you get early access, which means at least 24 hours before everyone else gets the episode, you get to watch it. There's also an extra section, we call it the Football Historian podcast Extra Time, and we ask all the questions to the guests that no one else gets to see unless you're a patron. And on top of that, you're the ones who get to ask the questions. You send them in, we tell you which guest is going to be coming and sitting in this chair. You ask them, we record it, you get to watch it. No one else does. On top of that, we do a monthly special. We did one last night. It was a quiz. You were there.
Yeah, bedlam and great content.
Yeah, so hopefully you can watch that. As I said, we've got a round on Linvoy Primus or Lionel Messi. We've done mastermind stuff, all that. That's going to happen every month. The bigger this grows, we're going to do it even more regularly. Hopefully it'll be once a week. But we need your support. So to do that, £1 a month for the first 100 people. Your early support will be rewarded. From then on, it's £3 a month if you want to support us. If you want to pay £5 a month, you get all that we've just mentioned, but you get a poster. Warren will sign it, I'll sign it, all the lads. We'll get a few of the guests to do it as well. We'll send that out to you. And then for £10 a month, you get all that, the poster, all the early access, and you get a free copy of any of my books. So I've done one on Billy Liddell, Crossing the Park, Tommy Lawrence. They're all worth at least £20. For just £10, you get a copy of the book, all the stuff we've already mentioned. We'd really appreciate your support. We cannot do this without you.
This really is a passion project, and anything people can put into it goes straight back into it. We don't take a wage. We're doing this for free. We're doing this because we enjoy what we do.
That's it. It all makes the content better. And I say from just £1 a month, you can make our dreams come true. Thanks for the support. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
The debate.
Hello, welcome back. We're now here for the debate, where we're going to settle some of the biggest debates in football history. And the first one, which I'm very interested to hear your opinion on, because, as we've already said, you're the first United-leaning guest that we've had so far. And there's one person who's winning this debate at the moment, and it's Gerrard, Lampard or Scholes. And if I can ask you for a 1, 2, 3 after you tell me who your best is as well.
Well, I always thought, Gerrard, unbelievable. You talk about. There's not many players, young players, get through at Liverpool. I think over the years, obviously Carragher's got in there, but it's been tough, I think, for Liverpool to promote youth players into the first, even though they've done really well. I remember one year, I think it was Liverpool had won the FA Youth Cup. I think Benitez said there's no one good enough in this 11 to play in like the first team, and then winning the FA Youth Cup used to be a standard bearer of like lads who've got a chance who are going to come in. So for Gerrard to do what he's done, and I think similar parallels to Robson really at United, that when Gerrard kind of turned up and played, he's like he just pulled everyone through with him, didn't he? Scholesy, little diamond. There was worries about Scholesy getting a contract because he's so small, 17, 18, 19 years old, tiny. And I think I read somewhere about Robbo and Sir Alex was watching a game on the cliff, and Robbo was saying to like, anyone in this group who you fancy, like who's coming through, and he went, I'm not too sure. And he went, this little ginger kid's pretty good. And like Robbo looked at him and said, he's about 5'4" or something, like, no chance. Anyway, picked up the ball, did something brilliant, scored a great goal, and he looked at her and said, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. So Scholesy coming into United's first team, I think he got opportunities. I think one of his first goals was Port Vale away, playing in like the League Cup back then, so I got blood in that side. And so from then, I think Scholesy blossomed into some player. His passing ability, score goals. He could score headers, even though he's small. I think his timing arriving into the box was outstanding. So that's the argument for Scholesy. Lampard, again, outstanding footballer. I think listening to his uncle, I think his uncle's Harry Redknapp, when he said he had to really work hard, Frank. And I think he was one of them players, a bit like Gary Neville in a way, that really, really wanted to be a professional player. Used to pull his spikes on after training and go out and do extra running and sprint work, and so the determination and the drive to become a top player, he had it. So I'm going to disappoint the Liverpool listeners, I'm afraid, but Scholes is going to be my number 1, Stevie G number 2, and Frank in third position.
It's predictable, but I was happy to hear the other side of that argument. That's fine. So the next one is Pele or Maradona.
Again, unbelievable. Like, look at Pele's record, like the amount of games he played, the amount of goals he scored. Phenomenal, really. Managed to pick up a few World Cups in the 1970. I think he was one of the young players, wasn't he? Is it 58? Brazil won in Sweden, was it?
Yeah.
When sort of the great Brazil side at the time, like Garrincha playing and some really top players. I thought one of the 70 side, I thought was one of the best of all time. You know, especially the final when they beat Italy. I thought that was incredible. Some of the goals, especially that last one. Carlos Alberto, and up until recently, I think over the social media, there's like different angles of that goal, like in sort of more defined vision. Is it like in sort of 4D or whatever they call it, and like the sort of to look at him bursting up. I think it was Pele just held it up, wasn't he? Just flicked it to the side and bang. And,
so the socks are dead low and it's just passing around. It's iconic, isn't it? Really,
100%. So the argument's very difficult here because obviously Pele's led his team to World Cups and Diego's done it as well, hasn't he? Like Diego, I think, burst on the scene. First time I saw Diego was at Wembley. I think he was about an 18-year-old playing against England. And it was one of them when he picked the ball up and he beat about 3 or 4 players and he just nipped it. It just went just wide of the post. And you're thinking, wow, that's unbelievable because it's only 5'5", 5'6", and they're really tiny. Just natural ability, you know, especially when he went to Napoli and sort of drove them to a sort of a Serie A title. And I think felt a bit sorry for Diego, a lot of pressure on him, you know, being sort of made to play when he wasn't right, you know, knee troubles, injections, and you know, put a lot of demand on him. And I think has really struggled one of them players, like when football had come to an end, you know, lots of issues outside of the game, drug problems, and the infamous stuff. I think he got caught with drugs in one of the World Cups, and he did a test and failed. And failed that. I think it was that. I think he scored and then come running to the camera like with his face and that. But I think out of ability, natural ability, probably a difficult one. But for me, Maradona was unbelievable, and Pele, like it's hard to separate them. But maybe because of the eras, and I saw maybe a bit more of Maradona, I'd probably like go with him number 1 and Pele number 2, Pete.
Yeah, well that's fine. I said that was the age-old question until the last 15, 20 years, where it's now, which is our next debate, Messi or Ronaldo.
Again, it's very hard to separate. I think Ronaldo was more, let's try and get this in the right terms, more of a manufactured player. He kind of like, again, drove himself to be the best that he can be, and still doing it to this day. I think that's one of the traits that separates the excellent from the very good, isn't it? And that is that ability to not rest on your laurels and just keep doing it. You know, he's probably still doing it now. I know obviously he's in a sort of a league that's not the best, but he's still demanding of others around him, and you know, still trying to drive himself and others to be the best they can be. Messi, probably more natural ability than Cristiano had. I'd probably go Messi first and Ronaldo second. My person, just because of that natural skill that he had. But again, you look at the statistics of the pair of them, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's like Ronaldo's like, what was he, like 800, 900 games? About 800 goals in a side. It's crazy, isn't it?
No, absurd. Yeah, well, that's why they're so highly revered. But maybe they both brought the best out of each other as well. Because although I think Messi is winning in this debate, but it's I think without one, the other one wouldn't have been as good. I think. But
you know what, Pete, as well in Qatar, over the moon that Argentina managed to win a world, because you talk about differentials, don't you? And like little things that maybe separate the very good from the excellent, and that's maybe a World Cup wins one of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was over the moon that he managed to pick that up for the Argentinians, and
Well, as you said, they're both special players, but I think as I said, that's the question of the last 15, 20 years. But I think maybe one that's more interesting or harder to decide is if they're the best two, who's the third best in their era of their dominance.
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, I'm again, I mentioned him like before about like Ryan Giggs, like so you look at, if you go to statistical achievements, like what he's done was frightening. Like I think he ended up with is it 900 odd games or something, or about 11 Premier Leagues, FA Cups, and you know he's won. And people used to laugh and say, well, when Ryan first came on the scene, some of the goals he was scoring was like very best like. Now Fergie was not happy about, someone wrote an article about the comparison of Giggs and Best when he was coming through as a young player, and he said like we don't need to give him that added pressure on his shoulders, but for longevity, you know, he's got to be bang up there, because that Premier League, arguably, it's a tough league, isn't it? It's demanding. I think the Premier League over this last sort of 5 or 10 years is becoming tougher and tougher as more teams seem to be improving, more teams getting more financial backing, more teams getting better. That just goes to show this year, really, that the 3 teams that came up from the Champions League, it's looking highly likely they're going to go straight down again. You know, and that step up is really tough. Like Burnley absolutely smashed the Championship, but not cope with the Premier League. You know, and that kind of transition is really hard. But I think Ryan's like outstanding. I think he kind of be bang up there. But you're right, like naming a kind of a, you know, a sort of a third player up there. And I think there's been lots of good players, hasn't there, that have kind of been in different national teams, you know, like the Italians and the Germans. But I think Messi and Ronaldo kind of set a bar that's the third kind of players, like quite a way away, aren't they?
It's a bit of a gulf, yeah.
It's a bit of a gulf, those two. But again, coming up behind them in modern football, you know, who are the next superstars? You know, Mbappe was kind of knocking on the door, wasn't he? But I don't think he's kind of quite fulfilling his potential at the moment.
There's Haaland, obviously, it's a bit of a freak, but he's still, I don't think he doesn't shine as much in the game, maybe, is what you could say, as if you're watching Messi or Ronaldo. Like, he scores the goals, but does he carry the team and that type of thing? But as you said, there's a lot of good players, but I think it's safe that Messi and Ronaldo are the top 2. Yeah. Well, if we go on to another one for you, then it's club or country. So obviously you're a player yourself. If you had got the England call up, if you had got the first team for United, what do you think would have meant more, like winning a World Cup or winning a Premier League, let's say, with United?
That's a really good question. I think that lots of players will say that the international is the pinnacle, isn't it, of any footballer's career, to represent your country. But then if you're a die-hard Liverpool fan or a die-hard Man United fan, like the Premier League, especially if you beat your rivals to it as well, is really satisfying. But I think probably representing your country will probably be like just over club. You know, people will probably say, "Oh no, definitely club for me." But again, you know, you look at the recent times, Peter. There's a lot of players, aren't they, sort of saying like, don't really want to represent England. I don't want to be in the squad and stuff like that. If I'm just going to be a travelling member, I'm not going to really be playing, which I think is really sad, because that ultimately is like you know, that's your ultimate kind of international caps, is like your sort of peak, isn't it? What you dream of as a youngster. So I think they are very close but I think Premier League, brilliant, but imagine like winning World Cup now, especially after like not won it since 1966 or a major championship. Doing that would be some achievement and some satisfaction to take from that.
Yeah, you'd have been a share doctor then.
Yeah. Another thing that winds me up, Pete, to be honest with you, these honorary doctorates at times. I think I've had to write an 80,000 word thesis for mine, and these honorary doctorates are just getting thrown out like confetti. No.
Okay, well, the last player one that we've got then is on goalkeepers: Buffon, Casillas, or Neuer.
Yeah, that's it. Again, they're all 3 quality keepers, aren't they? Good records, all of them. I mean, I like Neuer. I think he's like really good goalkeeper. So out the 3 ranking there, so I'd probably go Neuer, Buffon, Casillas would be my kind of 3 rankings there. Okay, but I'm not a goalkeeping expert though. They say like my old friend Mickey Pollitt always used to say you have to be mad to be a goalkeeper, diving at players' feet on cold mornings and all that. And it's not for me.
It's a bit alien.
It was never for me. No.
Okay, well, the last question, the last debate, there's a team you've already mentioned, but who do you think is the greatest team to ever play the game? So it can be like, it doesn't have to be from a one game, it could be like a 2-season period or whatever, but who's the greatest ever?
So can this be like club or international?
Yeah, anyone, yeah.
So, like I said, I mentioned it earlier, didn't we, about the Brazil 70 side. They were frightening, weren't they? Giarzino, Rivellino, Tostão, Gerson, Pelé, Carlos Alberto. So they always used to, so I remember the Brazil side going through the World Cups like 70s, 80s, you used to think like the keepers weren't that good. You always used to be sort of like a bit questionable, and you used to think, well, they're not needed a lot of the time. I think if any team could put Brazil under pressure, like they would have a chance because the keepers always spill something or make an error. But I think that was a great side, and I think one of the tragic ones that potentially could have been a great side was the Munich 58, the Busby Babes. A lot of those lads were destined, I think, for stardom, who lost their lives at Munich. So that was a real sad, poignant loss, because you think about it now. I know Liverpool's done unbelievable, like winning like European Cups and that. United have currently sat on 3, but might have had a few more if the Busby Babes had lived. Always something that I think about that. If they'd have come through Munich and it not had happened, what would they have done in football? Probably quite a lot of the Busby Babes would have made up the 66 side, possibly, who won the World Cup. Yeah. So that's another team that kind of stands out. But again, it's a great debate because, going through history, you look at some of the great sides over generations, and, there's been some top quality stuff. Liverpool have had like a lot of sides to be proud of. A lot of good international sides in the World Cups, like the Argentinians, the Italians, the Germans. You can always pick out some really high quality players from any of those that had probably played and done the business in any era, Pete, wouldn't they? 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, it wouldn't have mattered. You're a good player. If you're a good player, you can play in any time because you're so good you can adapt to it, can't you? The game's a lot quicker now, a lot faster. There's a lot more intensity, but the training's better. So you think about this 50s, 60s, or 70s lads playing on these mud heaps. Yeah. Every ground you see now. I mean, like I say, I'm fortunate enough to travel around a little bit with Exeter, even at like League 1, League 2 level. It's like bowling greens, all the grounds. Like there's no mud heaps anymore, is there? And what would like some of the top players be like on those? Like frightening, really. Yeah, well, that's where you see cup ties when they're playing the lower league sides now, and they can't play the football that they're used to playing. Okay, well that ends our chat. So thank you very much once again for talking to us. Just if you want to tell people at home how can they reach you, how can they follow you, anything to plug. Yeah, well, I'm kind of sort of on 2 kind of areas at the moment. I mean, probably the main one's like Twitter, now X. So I'm Alan _Tonge on that. And then I've got like a LinkedIn profile as well. It's difficult, isn't it, these days? Social media's booming, isn't it, all the time? You won't see me dancing on TikTok, Peter, or anything like that, so none of that. But yeah, they're kind of my main 2, really. So Alan _Tonge on both of them. Yeah, I'll just have a look at you on there. And obviously, if you haven't already, get a copy of Red to Red, your story, obviously, from being a player up to becoming a doctor today. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for making the trip to the garage. And thank you, everyone, for watching at home. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Football Historian Podcast.